Hello and welcome to Bourbon Rocks. Tonight we're going to review Weller Special Reserve. So this is the entry-level bourbon in the Weller line from Buffalo Trace. So Weller is the wheated bourbon line. It's the same mash bill as the venerable Pappy Van Winkle, old Rip Van Winkle bourbons. But this is the lower priced version, typically not aged as long, but it is exactly the same mash bill as Pappy. Weller, it comes in different expressions. This is the entry level. It's the least expensive and what would be considered the daily drinker if you wanted to have a nice, good Weller wheated bourbon. It's bottled at 90 proof, and there's no age statement on it, but it's estimated to be somewhere around 6 to 8 years of age by most sources. So this is how you're going to get into wheated bourbons from the Buffalo Trace distillery. It's going to be fairly mild. It's going to be relatively nicely priced, but being that it's Buffalo Trace, it's going to have hype. It's going to be allocated. It's still going to be hard to come by. It's going to fly off the shelves because it's Buffalo Trace. Welcome to the hype that is that distillery. But it is the easiest to acquire and the least expensive of all of the wheated bourbons from Buffalo Trace. So we're going to try Weller Special Reserve. You can tell it's also the least expensive. It's got a screw cap. Now, when we started Bourbon Rocks, we did review some very high-end, expensive, hard to come by, highly sought-after bourbons, and that was because we wanted you to see what Bourbon Rocks had to offer and to sort of wow the new viewers and so forth. But I never meant this channel to be elitist. I do want to do everyday bourbons and more accessible bourbons, things that you can drink on a regular basis, Weller, being that's Buffalo Trace and still somewhat difficult to acquire, is it really going to be a daily drinker? Is it going to be good enough to be a daily drinker, first off? And then if it is it going to be accessible enough to be a daily drinker? But that's what we're trying to decide here. So we start out, we in our Glencairn glass, and we look at the color, and I see sort of a, it's a light orange, sort of amber color. The legs are, medium body, not super heavy body, but not light. It's got some legs to it. It's a medium body. We go to the nose. And this is sweet. So, some cotton candy in there. But the first thing that I get that's very interesting is actually some tropical notes. That's a little bit surprising. I've had some bourbons that do have some tropical notes. I've noticed even in some of the Pappies is that pineapple. This is like a candied pineapple. I had there's little pieces of dried pineapple that are like candied and so forth. I get a little bit of that in here. Maybe a little white chocolate too. Interesting, but definitely sweet, very, very sweet. Not a lot of spice on the nose. It's only only 90 proof, so it's not going to be a whole lot of alcohol there. Let's go on to the palate and see what we get. Again, still really sweet. That wheat is predominant. It's like a blondie, when there's the blonde brownies, if you will. The blondies are very sweet, very almost like a little white chocolate in there. There's still a little bit of that tiny hint of the pineapple. It's not as much as it was on the nose, but there's still a little carrying through. Definitely some toffee. Very buttery, actually. Vanilla. So that cherry, all the wheated bourbons from Buffalo Trace, in my opinion, have a cherry note that underlies everything. It's not as powerful here as it was in the Antique 107, but interesting, the pineapple is what's really kind of fascinating here. The spice is coming in the way of nutmeg. There's a little bit of honey, but yeah, that toffee, blondie, definitely, I really feel that blendiness and the teeny bit of pineapple, and then the cherry coming through, and then just that mild amount of spice. It's not hot at all. It's 90 proof. It drinks very smoothly, very easy to drink. It doesn't have the full flavors that you're gonna pull out of that Antique 107. It just doesn't have the proof to really give you enough of those rich flavors, but it's very pleasant. It's very easy to drink. The finish is medium. It's much shorter than the Antique 107. That had a whole lot longer finish, a lot more of the spice and heat that carried through. This one kind of fades off a lot faster. But that that caramel blondie is still there at the very end. That's the predominant taste that I have through the whole thing. I'm gonna give it a Jack. This is an everyday bourbon. It's not spectacular. It doesn't it doesn't have all the flavors you get in the Antique 107. It certainly doesn't have the flavors that you have with the mid-range Wellers, like the 12 and the full proof. And the CYPB or the single barrel, which can really vary a lot. And by no means is it going to come anywhere close to the William LaRue Weller from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, because that's one of the best bourbons on planet Earth, rivaling the high-aged Pappies. But this is a daily drinker. I mean, this is something you can sit down and every single day you can drink it. It's very good. It's not spectacular. It's not anything that's amazing. It's probably it is basically the entry-level wheated bourbon from Buffalo Trace, but it's good. It's a great thing to drink a daily. The only reason it really falls short of being a daily drinker is because being that it's Buffalo Trace, it's still hyped. It's still hard to come by. Not that difficult. You can find it. And it's the cheapest. It's still probably going to be a little bit overpriced. If you get it at list price, it's worth it. If you have to pay a little bit more on the internet, it's still worth it, because it's a very, very good bourbon. Not anything amazing, but a very, very good daily drinker. So I would say if you want to start out and introduce yourself to wheated bourbons, this is a good starting point. But very quickly, you're going to want to jump yourself up to the Antique 107, which is a significantly better bourbon and a higher proof point and a lot more flavor. But this is a good starter and it's a good daily drinker. And so this is Weller Special Reserve. Thanks for watching, and check us out on bourbonrocks.com. Thank you.